Aquarius workshop, the illusory fear of happiness. I start with a quote from Password Lecture 158 with the title, The Ego and the True Self, Cooperation or Opposition. And the quote is as follows. To the degree you feel unhappy, unfulfilled and empty, you fear happiness, fulfillment and pleasure. No matter how much you strain and yearn for it on the conscious level. End of quote from Password Lecture 158. Unconsciously, every person is more or less afraid of happiness. This illusory fear of happiness is the most suppressed of all negative emotions, making it one of the most difficult emotions to discover. Becoming aware of the inner part that says no to happiness is therefore a crucial turning point on the road to self-realization. The illusory fear of happiness creates all kinds of unhealthy reactions, symptoms and tensions, which lead to patterns that always seem to destroy what is most desired. On a conscious level, there is a strong, compelling desire for happiness, but the fear of happiness forbids and refuses happiness, so that inwardly there is a conflict and deep guilt. We feel we don't deserve happiness because we reject ourselves and create negativity, because we harbor hatred for the people we love, because we dare not to let go of ego control, because we fear pain, suffering and death, because we experience happiness as threatening, because we resentfully want to get more than we are willing to give, and because we believe in the persistent misconception that we cannot be happy here on earth. In this workshop you will explore with a loving curiosity the consequences of the illusory fear of happiness in our lives through 3 themes from the Password Lectures. The first theme. Fear of happiness is fear of suffering. To fully live and enjoy, it is necessary that we fully accept the existence of suffering and death on earth, and that we have the inner readiness to die at any moment, to surrender to death. Fear of death is proportional to fear of happiness. Due to that fear, we choose on a subconscious and deeply hidden level not to want love or not to live, and this is an unhealthy, self-destructive attitude, because on that subconscious level we are being unfair to ourselves. The next quote stands from Password Lecture 82. Courage and honesty are perhaps the most important assets in one's development. If you face your suffering and your joy, you must grow, while the person who cringes away from suffering, denying it, never even facing it, fearing it beyond reason and its true proportions, is inevitably equally afraid of happiness and fulfillment. End of quote from Password Lecture 82. The second theme. Fear of happiness is fear of letting go of ego control. True happiness cannot exist when the ego, with its fear, pride and self-will, reigns supreme. When the ego either wants to stay out of life process and play a passive receptive role, or, on the contrary, wants to hold the reins too much. When the ego is freed from misconceptions and deliberate destructiveness, we let go of this control and are no longer afraid of losing our individuality. Only a healthy, strong and balanced ego can surrender to the true self and experience oneness with the inner core. The next quote stems from Password Lecture 142. Fear of happiness resides at a very deep level of the human psyche, way beneath and beyond the ordinary, neurotic, distorted misconceptions and fears that man harbors in his unconscious mind. The fear of happiness is directly related to the fear of letting go of man's outer ego faculties. By the same token, the longing for happiness must therefore also be a longing for release of these ego faculties. End of quote of Password Lecture 142. The third and last theme. Only the true self is happy. On a conscious level, we strive and crave happiness, but the levels of consciousness that are alienated from the true self, such as the lower self and the idealized self-image, are unhappy and shrink from bliss. Happiness can only exist if we accept ourselves and thus activate the true self. When we do not identify with the ego, but with the true self, and transcend duality, when we see the truth and reality of the true self and let go of the ego. The last quote stems from Password Lecture 158. You cannot be the real self without being happy, and you cannot be happy unless you are integrated with and lived by the real self. This is the kind of happiness that knows no fear of ending or losing it, nor does it fear unwelcome byproducts. It is the kind of happiness that is at one and the same time dynamic, stimulating, exciting, vibrantly alive, and yet peaceful. End of quote from Password Lecture 158. For more information, look at my website. I wish you peace and all the best. Thank you.